So recently I started listening to the Metaphor Fantasio OST. Atlas is known for making incredible soundtracks, but somehow I hadn't heard anything from this one before. That got me curious, so I went to the Game Awards website to check if it had won OST of the year, and to see what the other nominees were. Astrobot, yeah, that tracks. Metaphor. Silent Hill? Since when do horror games have good music? FF7 Rebirth won. I mean, Final Fantasy always has good music, right? Hold up. Stellar Blade? What the hell is Stellar? Now, as I'm sure most of you watching already know, Stellar Blade is a Korean action-adventure RPG developed by Shift Up and published by Sony in 2024. Now, I didn't know anything about this game's story, gameplay or music. So naturally I looked up the OST and clicked on a random track in the playlist. And after hearing the first 2 seconds, oh boy. Now, quick disclaimer. I'm really not an expert at analyzing pieces of music at all. But this track seemed interesting and easy enough to analyze, and I actually enjoy editing videos. So I figured, why not share my thoughts and try to break down what's happening in this song. I know I'll get some things wrong, so please correct me in the comments. Alright, let's dive in. Now, if I sound any different, that's because I'm recording this like 5 minutes after I woke up. So yeah. So the name of the song will be Analyzing is Don't Forget Me. That's a pretty generic title, to be honest. And again, I have no idea where this track plays, so I have absolutely no context. The song was written by Youngjee Lee, a Korean game composer, and the vocals are by... I don't know how to pronounce that, but she's an incredible singer. For the sake of this video, I'll try to explain everything along the way, so even someone who doesn't know anything about music will at least have the slightest idea of what I'm talking about. Feel free to pause the video and rewind whenever you need to. So the track is in 132 BPM and in 4/4 time. This basically just means that every bar of music, that's one of these segments here, has 4 quarter notes in it. We're in a key of A major. Now, this is something that most non-musicians definitely don't know about. So let me explain it. Have you ever sat down at a piano and tried to play something even though you can't play piano? The odds are pretty high that it sounded bad. That's because you weren't playing in any key. A key is just a series of 7 notes that when you use them make your music sound right, and they're basically the pillars of a working piece of music. If you build chords from every note like this, they all have a different function in that key. So a G chord wouldn't work the same when you use the notes of the E minor key as it would when you use the notes of the C major key. Wait, how do you build chords again? We'll make it simple. On a piano you can either move in a whole step, that's from for example C to D, or in a half step, like from C to C sharp. This applies to all Western instruments, by the way. There's 2 types of keys and chords, major and minor. A major chord is built by taking a note, adding a major third on top, that's 4 semitones or half steps, and another fifth from the starting note. That's 7 semitones in total for the fifth. Boom, you have a C major chord. A minor chord is the same, but you lower the second note, also called the third, by a semitone. Now, in general, minor sounds sad and major sounds happy, and that's all you need to know for now. The clever ones will have noticed that the third isn't actually the third note in a chord, but the second. When referring to chords, you name the notes and then based on their respective scale/key. So the third is actually the third note in the scale of this example C major. Now, only because the key is major, that doesn't mean all chords built from the respective notes in that key are major. In a major key, the first chord is major, and then minor, minor, major, major, minor, and diminished. That one was weird, don't worry about it for now. The first chord built on the first note, which is the note the scale is named after, feels stable, like you're at home just chilling out. We also call it the tonic. Now, the second most important chord is the 5th chord, built from the 5th note in the key. Being here is like being in school, it's not really pleasant and you'd rather be at home as soon as possible. This one we call the dominant, and it evokes a lot of tension that wants to release into the tonic, so the first chord in the key. The other chords are a little more complicated and can be used in many different ways, but what you need to know for this video is that they're pretty much used to lead into either another chord that isn't the dominant or the dominant. We call these chords subdominants. So again, we're in a key of A major, and these are the notes in that key. A is the tonic and E is the dominant. By the way, these hashtags are called sharps and just indicate what notes are supposed to be played a half step above. So these notes instead of these notes. Because only C major and A minor are keys that use all the white notes on a piano. And that gives us the notes of A major, starting from the note A. Why is everything so piano related, although all of this can be applied to most instruments? I don't know, the piano is just that goated. Look, I even own one. Okay, no, there was a lot, but there was basically everything you need to know to understand like literally most of music nowadays. Don't worry, I'll explain stuff along the way again. Now if I sound any different this time, it's actually because I'm recording this one day later, 5 minutes after I Okay, let's actually take a look at the song now. I'll explain everything first and then you get to listen to the section twice so you can hear everything I mentioned. The song follows a pretty standard pop song structure. We start with an 8-bar intro, then comes an 8-bar verse, an 8-bar pre-chorus, an 8-bar chorus, an 8-bar verse, an 8-bar pre-chorus. Oh wait, there's like a new kind of bridge here, I guess, that lasts 8 bars, and then a 16-bar guitar solo. So as you can see, the structure is pretty symmetric and repeating, which is very normal for a more pop-inspired song like this. We'll start with this 8-bar intro here. We start with this A major 9 chord that lasts 2 bars. So the 9 just tells you that there's also the 9th note of the scale in this chord. Wait, I thought you said there was only 7 notes in the key. After the 7th note, the scale just repeats again, so the 8th note is actually just an A again, and the 9th is a B in the key of A major, for example. These extensions are used in many modern songs, but especially in jazz. The 9 means that the 7th is also included, otherwise you'd say add 9. So we start on the tonic A, stay here for 2 bars, and then go to the C major 7 chord. Now let's look at the A major scale real quick. Here we see that D is the 4th chord in A major. We also stay here for 2 bars. This then leads us into the 2 chord B minor. Here we stay for 1 bar and then we go back to the 4. Now usually the 4 chord does exactly what I said earlier. It's not the tonic or the dominant, so it usually leads into subdominant or E in this key. But in this case, after the 4 chord, so D major 7, we go back to the tonic. So it kind of acted like a dominant resolving to the 1, but not quite. See, when a dominant, in this case E, resolves into the tonic, we call it a perfect cadence. But this cadence feels very final, like there's nothing more to come after it. So the 4 chord can also be used to create a sort of release, but a way humbler one. When the 4 chord resolves into the 1, we call that a plagal cadence. So after the 4 chord D major 7, we go back to 1, A major 9 for 1 bar. Then we get the school guitar transitions that last for 1 bar and ends with a D sharp diminished. What you have to know is that this will just kind of lead into the next chord in the first verse. Let's hear it once so you get an idea of what all of this actually sounds like. Because I mentioned the guitar, let's look at the instruments. Because that's the thing that made me keep listening to this song in the first place. So we don't have too many instruments here in the beginning. Just a bass, drums, guitars, and also a quiet electric organ that mimics the guitar part in the background. What really caught my interest was the use of the guitars. There's a main guitar playing this motif for the first 8 bars, which we'll hear later in the piece again, and another one in the background giving rhythmic chords to the entire structure. The rhythm guitar is also being palm muted, which makes it sound quieter and well, muted. Both of these guitars are very reminiscent of Japanese jazz fusion, which is a subgenre of jazz fusion that originated in Japan and features these funky guitar and bass lines. You probably know it from the Mario Kart 8 soundtrack that was partially made by a Japanese jazz fusion band. I absolutely love this genre, so I had to keep listening. Pay attention to the rhythm guitars this time. I know I've made this joke like 2 times already, but I actually just woke up 5. Let's get to the first verse now. So after that D sharp diminished in the previous bar, we get to this B minor 7 chord, which is the 2 chord of A major. We stay there for 2 bars and go back to the tonic. Now, although we go back to the tonic, that's not a new cadence, we just shift from one chord to the other. They're pretty close on the keyboard, so it's a pretty relaxed movement. We stay on the A major for 2 bars, swing back to the 2 where we stay for 1 bar, and then have another plagal cadence from the 4 D major 7 to the 1 A major. Here we stay another 2 bars. So the harmonic tempo, as I'd like to call it, stayed the same as in the intro. By that I mean that we have the first 2 chords that last 2 bars each, and then we have this little cadence going on with the 2 and the 4 lasting for 1 bar and then resolving to the tonic lasting 2 bars. It creates this conversation-like effect. The first 2 bars sound like a question. And the other 4 are like a response. We also have vocals in the verse now. By the way, this is like one of the songs that you don't want your homies to know that you listen to. Now listen to it once before we get into the instrument part, and try to pay attention to the conversation I mentioned.
Lately, I've been thinking about you. Crazy how the time goes passing by.
The instruments haven't changed too much yet. The main melodic guitar is obviously gone now, so the vocals can be the center of attention. Only the rhythmic palm muted guitar remains, which seems to be a little more muted this time around. The electric organ also seems to be completely gone for now, which I guess is supposed to make the verse more light and less overloaded with instruments. The bass gets a little more free as well and doesn't just play the same one note pattern all the time, and the drums get an actual beat using the snare instead of the hi-hat 16th notes in the beginning. A little guitar riff then leads into the pre-chorus. Take a listen to both the intro and the verse and see if you can hear the changes.
Lately, I've been thinking about you. Crazy how the time goes passing by.
Now let's get to one of my favorite parts of this track, the pre-chorus. What I really like about this section in particular is that it really builds up to the chorus and creates a lot of motion. So after the guitar riff transition in the last bar, we land back on the B minor 7 chord. Now usually we'd expect this to last for 2 bars like every other first chord until now. But instead of lasting for 2 bars, we instead go to the E7, the real dominant / 5th, not just the 4 chord, in the very next bar. This sudden actual dominant shows the listener that we are actually going somewhere now. We're not doing those humble 4-1 plagal cadences anymore. This is a real 5-1 perfect cadence. By the way, when a chord just has a note name and a 7, it's neither major or minor, but a dominant 7. This is what a normal E major 7 would sound like, and this is an E7. It has a stronger need for release and it's just more tense. And then immediately we resolve that E7 into the tonic A major in the next bar. This 2-5-1 movement here is one of the most popular chord progressions in all of music, especially in jazz. It has a subdominant that leads into the dominant that then resolves into the tonic. That's a pretty perfect chord progression right there. The bass line is also very natural and satisfying. Then in the 4th bar we have this F#7 add 9 chord. No, that's not an auto-generated password, that's actually real music theory. Now usually F#7 would be the 6th chord in the key of A major, but it works a little different here. It's a dominant 7th, so like the E7 it has a very strong to resolve. But where to? F# isn't the 5 or the dominant of A major, right? But if we look at the B minor 7 chord, the chord that the pre-chorus started with, we see that its 5th is actually F#. So now that F#7 can perfectly resolve back into the B minor 7, and the previous 4 bars can loop again. By the way, I wrote add 9 because I think I can hear G#, but I'm not sure. We call this unexpected F# a secondary dominant. It's not the dominant of our real key A major, but it still has a dominant function, just for the 2 chord of A major instead. At the end of the pre-chorus we get this A# diminished 7 chord instead of F#, though it's basically the same chord just with an A# in the bass. This causes a stepwise semitone bass motion that just feels a little more funky. That was a lot of theory, I know, but the main reason for all of these changes is to prepare the listener for the chorus by speeding up the harmonic tempo. So now we have a new chord in each bar, which makes the entire thing feel more moving. Take a listen and pay attention to how everything feels a little faster. And if you can, try to listen to how the F#7 resolves into the B minor 7.
Can I confess these words to you? I feel
As for the instruments, you probably noticed some changes on your own. The last two bars feature another cool riff that leads into the next section, but it's played with a saxophone this time, which is a little teaser for what's about to come. Apart from that, the only major differences are that the vocals have harmonies now, and the guitar is way less muted this time, which also makes its rhythm stand out more and make the entire thing feel more moving. Let's listen to the verse and pre-chorus in succession, and pay attention to how everything builds up.
Lately, I've been thinking about you. Crazy how the time goes passing by. Can I confess these words to you? I feel time is coming soon. With what is left, I sing for you. Oh, did you?
Okay, I'm not gonna interrupt that build-up anymore, so let's get to the chorus. Harmonically, the chorus isn't even that interesting apart from the end. We start with this B minor 7 here, stay here for 2 bars, swing back to the A for a bar, then to F sharp 7 again. Just going from the 2 to the 1, and then using the 5 of B minor 7 to go back to the 2, B minor 7. From bar 4 it gets a little more interesting. We would expect to hear the B minor 7 for 2 bars and then swing back to the A major, but instead we go to D minor. Now, D minor isn't actually in the key of A major. It would usually be D major, like we've heard it the entire time. If we look at the A minor scale though, we see that D is actually minor there. So we kind of borrow that minor 4 chord and use it in this major context here. The minor 4 is like one of everybody's favorite chords and it evokes this bittersweet feeling. At the end the guitar plays some sort of chord that kind of leads back to B minor 7, but I'm honestly not sure what it is. I told you I'd make some mistakes. Feel free to tell me in the comments though, I guess. Let's take a listen. Pay attention to how the D sounds very different this time.
Heaven knows I'm dreaming of what I love. Oh, you know I can't get enough. I just wanna be the one who calls you baby.
As you've probably already heard, the chorus is kind of a climax for the instruments. The saxophone at the end of the pre-chorus already hinted at it, and now we have a full brass section in the chorus. It's a little quiet and is more like a background accompaniment. Also, it's funny how you can hear that the brass section is obviously a VST. The composer, singer and players were probably all in a little studio and I don't think they could have fit an entire brass section in there. There's also like these little flute licks in between that kind of remind me of the boutique theme from Sun and Moon. Try listening to the flute and the brass section.
Heaven knows I'm dreaming of what I love. Oh, you know I can't get enough. I just wanna be the one who calls you baby.
Because after the chorus usually a lot of stuff repeats, we'll only look at the major differences. As far as I can tell, the verse and the pre-chorus seem to be harmonically the same as earlier, but have new lyrics and a slightly altered melody. There's some instrumental changes we need to look at though. Remember that guitar motif from the intro? Yeah, that one. Well, now it returns and plays its accompaniment in the background. But this time the electric organ from way in the beginning actually plays it. I don't know why, but if you pay attention to it, it just sounds so happy. The actual guitar also starts playing that motif together with the organ, which just makes it sound even more awesome. Take a listen.
Trace me so I find my way to you. No one knows I need you like you do. Can I confess these words to you? I feel like time is coming soon. This love that's left belongs to you. So when
You probably already heard a little changes there at the end. That's because we actually have something new coming up. I guess you could call it a bridge or like a new pre-chorus. So after the F sharp 7 in the last bar, Instead of resolving to the B minor 7 at the beginning, we resolve down a major third to D major 7 instead, subverting the listener's expectations. We stay there for one bar and then go to a chord that I'm not too certain about, so I can hear the bass dropping from a D to an E, which would be the dominant? But D major 7 over E doesn't sound quite right on my piano, even though everything apart from the bass sounds the same in this bar. I wrote D over E for now, cause that sounds pretty fitting. From this weird chord we go to a C sharp minor 7. Let's look at our A major key real quick. C sharp would be the third, but I honestly think that it's just supposed to fulfill the role of an A major 9 chord here, because if we add another third under the C sharp minor 7 chord, you'll see that it's actually just an A major 9 chord again. It's kind of like the A sharp diminished 7 and the F sharp 7 add 9 situation earlier. It would also make more sense because this weird E D major hybrid chord here would resolve to this A again. But in the bass there's still a C sharp, so it's probably just there to make everything sound a little different, even though it fulfills mostly the same function as an A would. Then we go to an F sharp again, and the 4 bars loop again, except this time instead of going to C sharp minor 7 we actually do go to A. Which proves my theory, because now we can definitely hear that we're about to return to the chorus. And again we have this A sharp here for the stepwise bass. Take a listen and see if you can hear the differences between the C sharp minor and the A major 7.
So when the stars are fading, nothing on earth could keep me waiting from searching for you in all that I do. Oh, did you?
Don't worry, we're almost done. The chorus stays mostly the same, but there's this really cool harmonic movement at the end. And the last 4 bars after coming from the F sharp 7, we actually go to a C major 9, then an F major 9, and then to an A sharp major 7. So what the hell happened here? C major isn't in the key of A major, neither is F major. And we only used A sharp diminished as a passing chord to the B minor, but this A sharp also normally is in the key of A major, and this time it's not even diminished but an actual major chord. This is one of the major aspects of music theory and it's called a key change. We're no longer in the key of A major here, but in the key of B flat major, which is basically just A sharp major because A sharp and B flat are the same note. Let's look at the notes from the B major scale. C is the second, F is the fifth, and B flat or A sharp is the tonic 1. There you go. So all of that was basically a 2-5-1 in the key of A sharp / B flat major. Key changes like this are very common and happen in so many pieces of music. They're also called modulations, and now the A sharp is actually the tonic. That wraps up the chorus, and then that leads back into the B minor 7 for the guitar solo via a stepwise descending bass and a guitar motif. Take a listen and try to notice how it really feels like we're going somewhere else, into a new key. Wow, that was a lot. But this single song teaches you basically everything you need to know about modern harmony. I mean, I guess I taught you pretty badly. Since the time of writing the script, which was extremely time consuming by the way, I have listened to a lot more from this OST and wow, it only got better. Like Song of the Wanderer. Or the 807 Street theme. Or even the Hypertube slide theme. I don't even like K-pop, but that's pretty good. This OST is honestly so incredible and I'd love to analyze more of it. It's a shame that Stellar Blade got dropped off OST of the year, because let's be honest, the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack gets a little boring after all the fan service. The video is definitely over the 10-minute mark. I just hope it's not close to 30 minutes, because that will take actual weeks to edit. Okay, that would be the end of the video. Leave a like and wait, what? I forgot about the guitar solo? Oh, right. Actually, I'm too lazy to transcribe that, and there's nothing interesting happening there anyway, so I'll just let it play in the outro.